Juhas will be back as a grad student. Aubrey Griffin will be back as a senior. Obviously missed most of this past season with an injury, had tons of back issues during this 2021 season, and was not able to be a part of that season for the UConn Huskies for the most part, but is definitely going to be back and will be back as a senior. Paige Beckers, Aaliyah Edwards, Nika Meal, and Piath Gabriel will all be back as juniors. Gabriel is going to be interesting to see if she hangs around, because we saw Mira McLean, Sailor Poffenbarger, a couple other young players on the UConn roster leave and transfer. Poffenbarger went to Arkansas, McLean went to the University of Virginia. Gabriel, in her first 2 years, has not got a whole lot of playing time. So she is a projected player on this roster for 2022 at this current moment, but obviously things could definitely change. So you have 4 juniors there: Beckers, Edwards, Mill, and Gabriel. AZ Fudd, Caroline Ducharme, and Amari DeBerry all going to be back as sophomores. And then you have Ayanna Patterson and Ice Brady coming in as freshmen. Those two ranked in the top 5 in the class of 2022. Both highly touted recruits. We're going to talk more about them coming up here in a moment. But again, those two, the 2022 recruiting class for the UConn Huskies, departing from Storrs are Christyn Williams, Evina Westbrook, and Olivia Nelson-Ododa. All 3 of those players provided great things for UConn over the last couple of years. Obviously, Williams and Nelson-Ododa over the last 4 seasons. Westbrook came in during the 2019 season and played for them in 2020 and in 2021. So again, those are the players that UConn they're bringing back. Those are the players that they're losing. And obviously at this time of the year, we're always talking about the transfer portal. We're talking about players that are leaving other programs that could be joining new contending schools. And UConn is one of those schools that's kind of jumped into the transfer portal the last couple of years with Evina Westbrook. Dorka Juhas is a player that came in during last offseason. And there are a couple of players in the portal right now that are going to be very interesting to track and interesting to watch. Asia Blackwell from Missouri is a player that UConn I think could definitely use, because the thing that plagued UConn in that championship game was a lack of finesse on the boards, a lack of physicality. Because with Nelson-Ododa and Edwards in there, you felt like they had a solid chance, but Boston was just too good for South Carolina on the inside. Saxton was right there as well. Grissett, Cardoso, they were rotating post player after post player in there, and it was really hard for UConn to really compete on the boards. They really couldn't. Out-rebounded 49-24 in that game. So you bring Blackwell in. She's not like 6'5", but she has size at 6'3", and can give you some physicality in there, and was a very good player for the Missouri Tigers. So she's a player on the front court to watch. In the back court, Sarah Scalia from Minnesota is a name that's come up in the UConn message boards, and is definitely someone that is familiar with Paige Beckers, played against her, played with AZ Fudd. That's somebody definitely that you got to keep your eye on, and somebody that can shoot the basketball. And that's something else that UConn did pretty well, but they lacked a little bit, was shooting the basketball from 3 lights out outside of Paige and AZ. Westbrook was streaky, Christyn Williams was streaky. If you bring a player like Sarah Scalia in there, that could definitely be a game changer for UConn. So definitely going to be interesting to watch what the transfer portal looks like, and that's just a very, very early look at what this roster could look like. And that kind of leads into our next topic. We're going to be talking about Charlie Creme's ESPN Way-To-Early Top 25 for the 22-23 season. And this is something that he does every single year, right after the season's over, does a way too early, really like a way, way too early ranking for the next upcoming season. And right now he has UConn at number 2, right behind South Carolina. South Carolina's bringing back, obviously, Aaliyah Boston, Bria Beal, Zaya Cook, Leticia Mehier, Camila Cardoso, Raven Johnson, Sanaya Rivers, Sanaya Fagan. All of those players are going to be part of the core for South Carolina next year. Now, they lose Victoria Saxton, they lose Destiny Henderson, and Grissett, obviously, who was playing an extra year as a grad student. But overall, this core for South Carolina gives them the best team in women's college basketball coming into this next season. And for UConn, we talked about their roster already, but you look at their projected starting 5, we know 4 players are locked at this point to be starters for the Huskies. Paige Beckers, AZ Fudd, Dorka Juhas, and Aaliyah Edwards. Those 4 are absolute locks to be in the starting lineup. And this is something that UConn fans have been talking about as well on the message boards. Is it going to be Nika Meal, or is it going to be Caroline Ducharme starting for UConn? And right now I have Ducharme as the last starter, and I think some people have agreed with that as well, and have Caroline in there just because of offense. You know, Nika Meal is not a player that's going to provide as much offense for you. She's going to provide a lot of defense. Obviously, was the defensive player of the year in the Big East Conference, but Caroline Ducharme brings the offensive explosiveness, brings that ability to score, and we even saw some of that in the championship game when she was forced into action. She had 9 points and played very good basketball for them. So definitely feel like Ducharme will get that last starting spot, again, along with Beckers, Fudd, Uhas, and Aaliyah Edwards. So that's kind of what UConn's looking at as their projected starting five. And just a quick run through the rest of the top 10. At that top 25, you have Stanford, Texas, Maryland, Iowa, Iowa State, Tennessee, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma. And again, we have a link in the description box where you can find that full article with Charlie Creme's full ranking. But again, as it pertains to UConn, has them at number 2 right now, behind number 1 South Carolina, who can definitely repeat next year for their championship. And I think a lot of people actually are expecting to possibly see UConn and South Carolina playing in another national championship game next season. But if UConn wants to have a different result next year, there's some things that they definitely have to fix, especially when it comes to rebounding the basketball and competing on the inside there with South Carolina, because they are so dangerous, so good there on the inside. And we saw when they matched up how that went down. But a great season for UConn nonetheless. And I said this in other videos, and this is something that everybody's talked about. Nobody really expected UConn to get to that championship game or even out of the Elite Eight. A lot of people were picking NC State to come out of that game and go to the Final Four. But UConn was able to get that win in double overtime. They were able to get that win in the national semifinals against the Stanford Cardinals. So definitely going to be interesting to see how UConn uses this as motivation for this upcoming season, because Paige Beckers talked about the fact that it's national championship or nothing at UConn. And if they want to go back and win it, definitely some improvements to be made, but I definitely think that they'll be able to make that happen. So that's what's going on with the Way-To-Early Top 25 and the projected roster for UConn in 2022-2023. And again, with the smaller recruiting class, they do have room for a transfer possibly. So we'll see how that goes as well. But again, now we're going to go into kind of a third portion of this little video here, third portion of this podcast, and we're going to look at some recruiting stuff as it pertains to UConn. And not all of this is breaking news. We're just going to be kind of reviewing some players that the Huskies have been targeting. Ciera Toomey, we're going to talk about, obviously went down with an injury in her state playoffs, and we'll talk all about that. We'll talk a little bit about Sarah Strong. We'll talk about Olivia Olson as well, and a new target in the class of 2025 as well. And that's actually where I want to begin. Zanaya Zealous, 2025 forward, 6'2", out of Lindsley High School in West Virginia. She plays for the West Virginia Thunder on the AAU circuit, and is one player that has been recently followed by Morgan Valley, part of the UConn staff. And usually when we see a UConn assistant following a new recruit, that does imply that there is some early interest. Nothing serious yet, especially with 2025 recruits, no matter who it is. It's not going to be anything heavy yet with the 2025 players. But Zealous is definitely a player to watch. I actually just got finished watching some tape of her, and the thing that really sticks out is just her skill on the inside to hit that little turnaround jump shot. That's something that she really likes to go to, and I think that is something that all forwards have to have. They have to have that mid-range ability, that ability to kind of post up a little bit, even if they're not a true post-up player at the 3 or the 4. You got to have that ability to kind of back down and hit that turnaround jump shot, that mid-range jump shot from 15 feet out, 18 feet out, and that's definitely something that she has to her game. I think she's more of an inside focus, cutting, slashing player right now. I don't see her as much of a jump shooter at this point, but that's something that all forwards are going to have to develop and get better with over the course of time. So definitely look at Zealous as a player to watch. Obviously in 2025, still super early. We can't really project at this point, who UConn's going to land, because they haven't really offered anybody yet in this 2025 class, and that even pertains to 2024 a little bit. And we're going to talk about 2024 coming up here in a moment. But Zealous is the first player I kind of wanted to touch on. Now I want to get to Ciera Toomey, who is a huge, huge target for UConn in the class of 2023. 5-star post player, and she's listed as a post player, but I really see her more as a forward, more of like a stretch 4 kind of player, who can stretch the defense, extend the defense out to the perimeter. She's so versatile, and that's why she's so good. Suffered a knee injury in the Pennsylvania State playoffs with Dunmore High School. And a lot of people have talked about, hey, when a player goes down with injury, how does that affect their recruiting status? I think with some schools it definitely will. But if a player's that good, if you're a player at the level of Ciera Toomey, none of these elite programs are going to stop recruiting her. They're going to obviously check in on the rehab process, see how that goes. But, still a very, very big target here for UConn. But UConn has a lot of competition as well. North Carolina, Villanova, Maryland, Penn State, Duke, Northwestern, and Vanderbilt. Those are the other schools in the mix right now for Ciera Toomey. And if you were to ask me right now who the biggest target is, or who the biggest threat is to UConn for Ciera Toomey, I would definitely say North Carolina. And the reason I say North Carolina is because she has a really nice relationship with that coaching staff over there at UNC. Took a visit there, and a lot of people have talked about, well, she was in a North Carolina uniform and stuff on the visit, and it looks like she really likes the campus and the program there, and she probably does. But I would still tab UConn as the favorite right now, and just simply because it's UConn, number one. UConn is UConn, and just like Duke and Kentucky, we talked about this with men's basketball recruiting as well. If you have that name attached to your program, like if you're UConn, if you're Stanford, if you're South Carolina, that's going to give you just an automatic leg up over other schools. Now, North Carolina is a really good program, but she has visited UConn as well, visited for the Arkansas game, first game of this past season, and, Gabby Williams had a knee injury back in high school, and one that was very serious, but it didn't stop schools from recruiting her. Leticia Amihir had a knee injury during her high school career, and that didn't stop Dawn Staley from recruiting her to South Carolina. So the injury isn't the biggest thing here. It's about the rehab and how she comes back, because she could be back by November for the high school season. It's just going to be interesting to see. ACL injuries aren't what they used to be, in that, yes, it still takes a lot of time to recover from those, but it's not where it's going to derail your entire career. And players are now coming back from ACL injuries a lot quicker than they used to. And that's definitely something to watch, is the status of Ciera Toomey and how UConn is recruiting her. Still, I think the leader in the clubhouse at this point. Now, another huge UConn connection is with Hannah Meal. Hannah Meal is the sister of Nika Meal of UConn, just decommitted from Illinois due to a coaching change there. And she is really, really skilled player. Watching tape, I just finished up watching tape of her as well, playing for the Croatian Women's Premier League. This past season averaged 13.1 points, 5.6 rebounds, 4.9 assists, and 1.8 steals. Great stat line, and I think was really going to bring a lot there to Illinois. But again, whenever we see a coaching change, that's when players are going to kind of want to back out. And that's kind of where they want to see and explore other options. Now, the main thing here that UConn fans watching this will be wondering is she going to be a target for UConn? Because of the Nika Meal connection, because Nika's there, will UConn recruit Hannah Meal as well? Remember, she's part of the 2022 class. So wherever she goes, she's going to be on campus this upcoming fall. I don't think that UConn's really going to be in the mix as much here, because prior to the commitment to Illinois, UConn wasn't showing as much interest, and UConn wasn't as much there. And they have their projected roster, and we went over that earlier. It's very guard heavy. Beckers, Meal is there, AZ Fudd, Caroline Ducharme is more of a wing, but you have perimeter-oriented players there already, and there's still the possibility of the transfer portal. So I really don't see UConn getting in the mix as much here with Hannah Meal. Fun player to talk about and fun player to track, just because you see the play style compared to Nika and what Hannah Meal does. It really is a good cutter and driver offensively, and I think is going to provide a lot of that to the next program that she plays for. But again, it's not going to be Illinois. That's the one thing that we know. Now, to wrap up, I want to talk about two 2024 recruits that we've talked about on this channel before, Sarah Strong and Olivia Olson, both from the 2024 class. Both, in fact, ranked in the top 5. Olson ranked 3rd, Strong ranked 5th. Now, Olivia Olson is out of Minnesota and is a really, really good basketball player. Plays that guard spot and really is one of those players that in the backcourt has strong jump shooting ability and just on the perimeter is very smart, has a high basketball IQ, and that's why you see UConn, Oregon, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Oregon State all in the mix right now. She was at Oregon when UConn came to town. Obviously, that was not UConn's best game. That was a really tough loss for the Huskies, but UConn is showing a ton of interest in her right now. And I wouldn't be surprised to see her be the top guard target in the class of 2024, because, yes, they're bringing in Arnold and Shade, and that could definitely affect things here for 2024. UConn may not need as many guards because you'll still have Fudd there by that time. And you just look at the projected roster at that point, it's still going to be a lot of perimeter players and very guard oriented. So, but you always want to prepare for the future, and Olson can definitely be a part of that, and definitely is a player that has great ball handling skills. Again, her ability to shoot the basketball from the outside, cutting, her passing ability, she's a willing passer. All of those things equal elite guard. An absolutely elite guard is Olivia Olson, and she was at the Final Four because it was in Minneapolis, obviously, and wasn't a long trip for her to go see some of the programs that are recruiting her, South Carolina and UConn in particular. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Stanford, really try to get in the mix. We know what they can do recruiting as well, along with Louisville. Louisville offers everybody. They offer every single elite player in the country. So that's going to be very interesting to see if some of those other schools get in the mix. But was at the Final Four and was able to see some of the programs that are recruiting her right now. And again, right now, UConn, South Carolina, two of the top schools on that list of offers and interest. Now, again, no confirmation of a UConn offer at this point. And that's something that's always very, very close to the vest, with UConn, is who they've officially offered and who they are really recruiting and stuff like that. But we know that there's a large amount of interest in Olivia Olson in 2024. And Sarah Strong plays inside at the forward spot. Number 5 in the class, according to ESPNW. Tennessee, Duke, Louisville, and NC State, just some of the other schools that are recruiting her right now. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see here as well what UConn looks like by that time in the post. Because obviously you're going to have Patterson, you're going to have Brady right there, and you look at DeBerry as well. Going to be interesting to see how Sarah Strong kind of fits into all of that. Again, just as it pertains to UConn and their projected team. When you watch film of her, which she's really playing well in the AAU circuit right now, and just switched high schools this past season, very, very physical player. Has a lot of size and physicality. Again, she's not 6'4", she's not playing that post position, but at that 4 spot, has a ton of physicality and can really play bully ball on the inside. And again, that's something that we talk about UConn needing to compete with other teams like South Carolina. Because South Carolina, down the line as well, they're going to have players that can continue to do what Aaliyah Boston has done for them right now. So you bring a player like Strong in, then you're going to get a ton of physicality. You're going to get a ton of skill. Good, solid passer, and continuing to extend her game out to the three-point line and out onto the perimeter. Not quite a three-point shooter yet, obviously, but getting that mid-range game going. And again, Olson and Strong, just two players that UConn really, really heavy on right now here in this class of 2024. So that's a look at some of the stuff going on with UConn women's basketball. Very excited to bring this first podcast to you as it pertains to the Huskies. We're going to have more of these for different programs, South Carolina, Oregon, UCLA, just go down the line. But we wanted to start here with UConn, and we're definitely going to have more Husky-focused podcasts, and very excited to have those. We went over the projected roster, talked about Charlie Creme's Way-To-Early Top 25, and also a little bit of recruiting news with some updates with the Huskies and some of their top targets. So again, this has been a presentation of Hoop Central on YouTube. We thank you so very much for, again, taking the time to join us.